It is recording. Okay, from yesterday. Any questions like stars or, there was a star that I asked you to put a star by, Rebecca, from the other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And you said everybody be bored and no, they won't be bored. Can I use it?
Yeah.
Because I have to dig through my stuff. They're passing me. There's one on each page. Okay. One or two.
I forgot you come on Wednesday, right?
And I do have some papers that they're passing it around.
That's cool.
And I have some papers that you need to fill out for the office, okay? So I'll just give those to you later. Will you be able to see over this? We're going to do the blackboard today.
Yeah.
Okay, we're having trouble with reflections and blurs over there, so we decided to try the blackboard today. Okay, these come from back when we were solving equations, but I always like to do a spiral review, which means I'm going to go back to those things and come to new stuff. I'm going to go back to some other stuff and do some new things, and I'm going to go back and back and back. It's a good review. Okay, here's the first one. This came off of our two-step equations worksheet. It says 9 equals 8c plus 15 divided by c. Now in this case, it may look a little bit confusing because when we did have a divide problem, it usually had a number on the bottom. Well, we treat it the same way. So let's do our first two steps. Our first two steps are put a line down through the equal sign so we can see the balance of the two sides. And then we circle our variable. In this case, it's in a couple of places. So we know we're going to have to deal with the c. I would really like to just have the variable in one spot. But this is going to be okay because when we worked with division problems, we said, what part of this do we not like? What part is scary to us? And most of you would say the C on the bottom, that's what's causing the problem. And that's a good clue because that's the one that we're going to deal with, okay? So if I want to get rid of this C, I treat it just like a number. Let me back up a minute. We still are going to do this. But you can't subtract a 15 from here first because we found out that these things are a part of a set, okay? They're a part of a set like a barn that's locked, and you can't go up in here and just get one piece out. And so that brings us back to this C that we're going to try to get rid of, okay? Now, when we have decided we want to get rid of the C, then we say, okay, and I told Rebecca yesterday, just stop and breathe and say, how is the C connected to the rest of the problem? And the C is connected to the rest of the problem with this divide, okay? So the mathematical operation is divide, and how do we undo divide? Multiply. So we found out when we deal with fractions, the multiply out here is easier to do. So we're going to multiply by C. And if we do that to this side, then we have to do it to this side, okay? We're going to multiply by C. Everybody okay? Okay. So when we do that, the C, just like a plain number, a whole number, if we want to make it a fraction, we can put it over 1. So since I'm dealing with a fraction here, I want to make this a fraction also. Okay, so we have found out that if we have a number, which would be a variable in this case, if we have a number as a denominator that matches a number that's a numerator in a multiplication problem, then those will both divide by C. When I divide this by C, I get a 1. When I divide this by C, I get a 1. And so our new equation here is 9 times C. Now in multiplication, you can switch. And it means the same thing. C times 9 is the same as 9 times C. So I'm going to write 9C, because when they're crammed together, we know this is multiply. Equals goes on the line. And when we start to multiply this, we see that the bottom is 1 times 1. So we're not going to write the 1 on the bottom. The top part is 1 times this set, 1 times the set. So we have to use the distributive property. 1 times 8 is 8C, because the C goes with the 8, plus 1 times 15. So this is what we have now. I'll try to get on the other side too. This will take some getting used to. Okay, now, one of the things I found out with some of you students is when you're trying to decide this stuff, you try to decide it by looking at everything. Don't do that. That's why we use this line, and that says, I'm done with that now. We're going to deal with this equation, okay? So we have the line down through the equal sign, and we circle the variables. Now again, we see that we have C's in 2 different places, and we don't want that to happen. So we know that before we do anything else, I only want the C in one spot, okay? There we go. I only want the C to be in one spot, but right now, there's 8 of them over here, and there's 9 of them over the fence somewhere else. And so I want to group those together. Now, this is a plus because the sign goes with the left goes with the 8. And if there's no sign here, this is a plus. So we know we could either subtract the 8C or we could subtract the 9C. And either one of those will get you the right answer. So don't freak about that. Okay? But you can save steps by getting rid of this one that has some extra stuff. If you get rid of this, okay, let me go back. If you get rid of this one by subtracting 9C, you're going to end up with a 0 on that side, which is not wrong. But if you do, it adds a couple of steps to your problem. And I found out from one of my students yesterday, they don't want extra steps. I just don't understand that. They're so much fun. So you can decide whichever one you want to subtract, and you will get the right answer. But doing this one that has some stuff with it will save you a couple of steps, okay? So since I want to get the C's all on one side, that means I have to get it off of one of the sides. Since this is a plus 8C, I'm going to minus 8C. Now, again, this could be confusing because all the time we had a number and a letter together, we divided. But you have to think of what you're wanting to accomplish. If we divided this by 8, that would leave a C over here. And dividing means it's going to pull those apart, and it's going to put the 8 somewhere and put the C somewhere, okay, by dividing. In this case, I don't want to divide these. I want the whole thing gone. And if I want the whole thing to disappear, I have to do a minus 8C. Do you guys see? C. Okay, and whatever you do to one side, we know we have to balance, so we're going to do a minus 8C over here because we do exactly the same thing to both sides, okay? We have a positive 8C and a negative 8C, and we found out that when we add those together, it's going to give us 0 because they're what we call additive inverse of each other, or a 0 pair. Okay, so it's gone, and we just put the 0 up here because we don't want to waste, there's no reason to put it down here. So now, after we have zeroed this part out, now we're going to add straight down. 9 C's, a positive 9C, and I'm going to take away or add a negative 8 C's. When I say add straight down, that's confusing, I know. But I need to use those words because of what comes later. So it's 9 plus a negative 8, but it's okay because the negative and minus mean the same thing. So you can think about it as 9 minus 8. Is that terribly confusing?
That as a 1C instead.
Yes, sir. So we're going to have a 1C equals, and since that's gone, all we have here is a positive 15. And we have found out that the 1 is usually treated as an invisible. And so this answer right here, where the C is by itself, this answer is correct. But you won't see it with the 1 on it, on your test. Okay, it's just going to say C, and you have to know that the 1 is an invisible one. Are we good? I'm okay. You can go ahead and do the thermostat if you want. Vanessa, if you want to, or Irene, or Rebecca, I don't care. But I know that you guys are cold back there, and I'm okay now. Are there any questions on this one? They're pretty much the same steps, right?
They're just on the other side?
Pardon?
You're just working on the other side?
I'm working on the other side, and we were dividing by we were multiplying by a variable this time rather than a number, but we do the same thing. It's the same thing. So let me know when I can erase this, and we're going to go to the next review one. Everybody done? All right, here's our next one. It is also on two-step equations, whole numbers, sheet number 3, if you want to look. This is number 9. Okay,
I'm just going to write it away.
that's okay. You probably won't have it, Randy, yet.
Nah, but I'm still writing it down.
I think you definitely should do that.
That's why I'm going,
Uh-huh. And remember, if you've missed some past stuff, go and watch the videos. Okay, this is the problem. Everybody there? Which one is that one?
I don't have that sheet on the phone.
It's the two-step equations. Two-step equation.
Oh, we don't have
Whole
those.
number.
Yeah, we don't have
Never mind.
those.
If you don't, then we'll write it down.
That's what happened
Okay.
there.
If you want a copy of it when we're done, I'll print one out. Okay. All right. When we see this equation, we see some variables that we're going to have to solve, and probably your instructions for this are going to say solve. And that simply means that look for the variable, which is an n in this case, and we want the n by itself with a value at the bottom. Okay? Or they might say solve for the variable or find the value of the variable. All of those, it just means just solve it like we've been doing. Okay, first step, line down through the equal sign. I think I've almost got to 42 times of that, huh? And then circle the variables. Now in this case, we've got 2 of them. So we know we really kind of need to focus on the variables and get them in one spot before we can go on. And in this case, it's even on the bottom. But we know this is what we don't like, so fix it. Okay? So we know that if we've got a bunch of stuff up here that's divided by something, this bunch of stuff is really a set. And when you put the parentheses there for yourself, then you'll realize that you can't go up into this building yet because it's locked by this. You can't go up and subtract a 9, okay? Because it's in a set and it's locked. So we're gonna have to use this to unlock that building. Okay, when we decided we want to get rid of this variable, then we take a breath and say, how is it hooked to the rest of the problem? It's hooked to this problem by the divide, okay? So I have to undo the divide. And how do I undo divide?
Multiply.
Multiply. It's kind of looking like the last problem, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so since we want to get rid of the n, we're going to multiply by n. And because it's a fraction, I want to deal with a fraction, so I'm just going to put it over 1 to make it a fraction. And before I do anything, don't even cancel yet. Don't even do that. You have to balance the equation. So on this side, you want to do times n also. The only reason we don't put this one over 1 is because I'm not dealing with a fraction here. Okay, so here's our line, and we're going to create a new equation to work with from the stuff that we did here. We found out that if we have something down here, a number, or a variable that represents a number, on the bottom, denominator, and a number up here in the numerator, but if they'll divide by the same thing, then I can cancel those out. I divide this by n and get a 1. I divide this by n and get a 1. Okay? And that's the whole reason that I did it. I want to make that happen. Now, because this is gone, because 1 times 1 on the bottom of a fraction, we don't write it. Okay, since this is gone, it unlocked this. And so now all I have left is this 1 times 20n and 1 times 9. Because the 1 is outside of parentheses, we have to use the distributive property to take care of this, okay? So 1 times 20n is 20n plus 1 times 9 is 9 equals, and over here, pretty easy. And remember, we said it can be 21n or it can be n21 because multiply can switch. 21n. Then you can ignore everything else that's up there. And you come down and all we're going to deal with is this equation now. We have a line down through the equal sign. We have to circle the variables. And when we do, in this case, we need another step in order to get the n's together. Now again, like the last one that I said, you can subtract the 20n or you can subtract the 21n and you will get the right answer. Which one should you do if you don't want to do extra steps?
I would say the 20.
The 20n? Mm-hmm. We're getting rid of, I heard 9, but we're getting rid of the ends right now because they're on too many places. They're in this yard and this yard, and I want them all to be in the same place, okay? So that means I have to either subtract this one or subtract this one. Either one will work, but this one will leave you with less steps. So let's subtract the 20n, and the way I knew to do this one was because it was with some extra stuff, okay? I'm just giving you the benefit of my wisdom of all my hundreds of years doing math. I just know it's going to cause you problems if you do this one. Okay, so if I subtracted 10n or 20n from this side, then I have to do it on the other side to make sure that I balance. And we're going to have a new equation to work with. I have 20n here, and the sign, the sign for 20 is to the left. This is the sign that goes to the end. I told you it's going to be one of those days. This plus sign goes with the 9, not the n. It's always the sign on the left. And we're going to talk about that a lot more because I think it's confusing to some of you. Anyhow, if there's not a sign here, it's a plus. So we know in order to get rid of this, I have to subtract 20 in, and I put it on both sides, and this is going to zero out to the additive inverse. And so when I add straight down, I end up with a 9 equals 1 in. Okay? And what did we find out about 1? We don't.
It's basically invisible.
It's invisible. And so this is not wrong, but you're not going to see it written like that. Definitely not on your test, and that's what we're trying to
And
familiarize you with.
if you take and just spread it out to how you'd see it on this,
Mm-hmm.
you would see it as 9 in.
9
equals in.
Equals in.
Mhm.
9 equals in. Now this is the same as n equals 9. 9 equals in. Same thing. Doesn't matter which side it's on, just keep it on its correct side. So the value of n in this particular problem is 9. Okay? Good morning. Thank you. Okay, is everybody got this one? Any questions on this one? John, can you see over this? Okay.
No, doing now for like the art. Yeah. But
And
Yeah.
thank you.
I think there's one more
Okay.
for the reviews. Ah, this is a good one. -4 equals -3 plus p over 7. Okay?
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Does it look scary?
Yes.
Sort of.
Okay, so let's just think it out. Remember, we eat our elephant one bite at a time. So first step, line down through the equal sign. Okay? Second step, find your variable and circle it. It's a P. Okay? So, circling the variable. Now, this is going to be different than the last two that we just did because the variables were on both sides. But we don't have to worry about that, so that's one less step we have to worry about, okay? The P, all the P's are on one side, and so we're going to focus on this side because this is where the variable is. And then we say, okay, I have to get rid of the -3, and I have to get rid of the 7, okay? Now, in this case, I really don't know for sure if we have even done one that looked kind of like this. But if we'll remember our best friend silly story, we can see that the 7 is really close to the P, right? And so in this party that we talked about in our silly story, the best friend will probably stay the longest. So when people start to leave, the straggler's going to leave. Okay? So let's get rid of the -3 first. And the -3, remember, works just like a minus. Negative and minus do the same thing. So if I want to get rid of the -3, how am I going to get rid of it?
Add 3.
Add 3, that's exactly right. So I'm going to add 3 here, and I'm not going to do anything until I put the same thing on the other side and balance the equation again. This line says, as soon as I get my new equation, I don't have to deal with this stuff anymore. Don't try to mess up your brain by trying to look at too much stuff. So after we have our line, we notice that we have a number that is exactly the same. We have a 3 and a 3, and their signs are opposite, so that makes them additive inverses. Makes a 0, it's called a 0 pair. And now we're going to add everything straight down. So on this side, I have a P over 7 equals, and on this side, Now be careful with your negative rules. Randy, remind me to give you a little paper that has the negative rules on it.
Oh, I sent it to him.
Good, good. So the negative rules for adding straight down, if the signs are different, we think subtract. So the difference between this is 1, right? And then we give it the sign of the larger number, which would be negative. If you are a money person, you can also think, I'm overdrawn at the bank, $4. So I drove over there and put $3 in my account. Am I out of trouble yet?
No.
I'm still overdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a money person, that might help you too. Okay? So now you have the line down through the, every time, line down through the equal sign, circle your variables so you know where to focus and you know what things to get rid of. Now we're going to focus on this side. We want the P by itself, so I have to get rid of the 7. Okay? Take a breath. How is the 7? How is the 7 put to the P? How's it connect?
Divided.
Divide. So how am I going to get rid of 7?
Multiply.
Multiply. And remember, when it's a fraction, we do it out here. It seems to be easier. And I'm going to put it over 1 because I'm dealing with a fraction. And before I do anything, I multiply by 7 on this side. I have to multiply by 7 on this side. Okay? Don't forget to balance your equation. Lots of tears if you don't balance your equation. Okay, now we found out that we have a 7 in the denominator and a 7 in the numerator. These will both divide by 7, so I can do that. It's called cross canceling. I can divide that by 7, it equals 1. Divide this by 7, it equals 1. So over here, I have 7 times a -1. Using your negative rules, we're going to find out if there was 1 negative, stays negative, and multiply. So now we have a -7 on this side. And over here, on the bottom, on the denominator part of this fraction, we have 1 times 1. And so if we have 1 on the bottom, we don't write it, okay? I'll write it for a minute and erase it. And on top, I have a 1p times 1. So I have a 1p over 1. But we know that the 1 on the bottom, we don't write, and the 1 in front of the p, we don't write. Is that correct? So now we have p equals -7. So the value of p in this problem is -7. Feel okay? All right.
What were the words that you used? Because I just want to write it down. When you were talking about 7 times -1, what were the rules for that? That it stays?
Oh, in multiply, if you just have 1 negative, your answer is going to be negative. But if you stick another negative in this problem like this, then they kind of wipe each other out, and so it's positive. Okay? And the rules that we wrote down that one day, Rebecca, was if we have an odd number of negatives, which 1 is odd, then the answer is negative. If we have an even number of negatives, the answer will be positive. And we'll work with this so much, you'll dream about it.
I already am.
Everybody got this down? Okay, this kind of warmed you up for our solving equations. And so you gave me, did you give me 4?
Yes.
Oh, we didn't even do the 4th one. Is that okay? Thank you. Any questions on what we did yesterday? Okay, well, here's what we're going to do now. We're going to deal with inequalities. We're going to solve inequalities. And then I'm going to actually show you how to graph them on a number line. You all will be happy. You'll be happy, happy. First of all, we need to talk about the inequality signs. Now, inequality means not equal, okay? Everything that's not equal. So the first one I would think of is, can you see that? Yes. Can you all see it in the back?
Yeah.
Okay. This is an equal sign, but all we're going to talk about is inequality signs. And so this is the not equal sign. We're going to be using this one. This is not equal. This one is greater than. Of course, this one is less than. Okay, now you're also going to have greater than or equal to. Am I in your way, Randy?
I'm just writing down the.
Greater than or equal to. So of course, this is less than. Less than or equal to. Let's start with these. I don't know that there's very many more. And these are called inequality signs. Inequality. Inequality signs. So we're going to be using these. Now, when I introduced these the other day, some of my students said, I'm really getting mixed up on which one's greater than and which one's less than. So I told you that if you think about a number line, then everything on the right side of 0 is positives. They're positives, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Everything to the left of the 0 are all negative numbers. -1, -2, -3, okay, and so on. So if you look closer at the number line, this sign is the greater one because the numbers get greater. From 0 on, they get greater. This part of the number line gets less than. So it'll help you if you remember the number line. See this? Less than is the arrow that points to the less. This one is the greater. There. It's a little bit more difficult now to use the alligator mouth, because when you used the alligator mouth in elementary and in junior high, you were only comparing this number with this number. But now you have to use it in word problems and in an equation or an inequality. Okay? Let's start with the first one, and I really think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with this. Let's say 6 plus x is greater than 7. Okay, this looks exactly like our equalities, our equations, except for that sign, right? Well, believe it or not, we work it the same way. First step, line down through the sign. The equal sign anymore. So here's our two sides. Here's the variable. And so if you can, just pretend you're using an equal sign right now. You just need to bring it down and bring it down and bring it down, okay? So if I'm looking at this side and I want the x by itself, I know I have to get rid of the 6. The sign in front of the 6, if it's not showing, is always a positive. It's another invisible. And to get rid of a plus 6, how do I get rid of it? Minus 6. And I have to balance this equation, get it in the same balance as it was in the beginning. I see that a minus and a plus 6 are a 0 pair or additive inverses. So I have x now. Now be careful, I do this all the time when I'm working inequalities. I come down and put an equal sign. Be careful. And then 7 plus a negative 6, or 7 minus 6 is 1. The x is by itself. So this is the answer. And translated, what this is actually saying is the value of x in this problem only can be any number that's bigger than a positive 1. So x could be 2, x could be 3, x could be 4. In inequalities, x will stand for more than one value. Okay? Yes? Well, let's go ahead and graph this. I would rather graph the really easy ones and then just keep on talking to you. So here's our number line. Now, some of you, when you think of a graph, you think of this, you know, our coordinate plane over here with the x and y axis. And then here's a number line. It's only one line. Our graph is one line, 2 lines, okay? This is a number line and this is a number line. We'll only use this to graph when we have 2 variables in one equation. Okay, this comes later. Okay, and by the time you get there, you're going to be so excited. Right? Okay, the way I tell everyone to solve this now, to graph it, I'm sorry. If this is the answer, then I draw a number line. I don't think you have to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It just takes so much time. I don't like to do that. So what I do, I always put the 0 because it's a placeholder for me. That way I can see where the positives and the negatives are. This helps. Then the only one that I write right now on this line is the important number. I call it the important number because that's our answer. So I find out where positive 1 is on this number line. Positive 1 is right here. Okay? Now, if you are very OCD and you need to say 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1, negative 2, negative, I don't care. It just takes longer and I don't think it's necessary right now. Okay? Now, after you put the important number here, we're going to circle it because it's very important. Don't circle the 1 up here, circle where it is on the graph. We're going to circle. Now we have to make a decision now. Some of your graphs, your line graphs, are going to have an open circle not colored in, and some of them are going to have a colored in circle. The colored in circle means equal to 1. The open circle is only everything greater than 1. Now look, so our answer here says x represents every single number that's greater than 1, right? If it said greater than equal to, we would color in the circle, but it's not equal to 1. It's only greater than 1. And so this tells us which way to shade. I need to shade in a greater direction. So from the circle that I have on the 1, I'm going to highlight every other number that's greater than 1. Y'all see? So again, what I do if I want to graph this, it only has one variable, so I'm going to have one line. Okay? And then I'm going to put my 0, because I put it in every one of them, and I'm going to find out where my important number is. And it's so important that I'm going to circle it on the number line. Now I have 2 decisions to make. Do I color in the circle? And where do I highlight on the line? Do I go this way or do I go this way? Okay, I go to the right because it's greater than. That's why you need to learn to say the word and not think about the alligator mouth. Alligator isn't helping here, is it? Okay, so you say X represents all numbers that are greater than 1. Do y'all see? And the only difference here, again, is if it said greater than or equal to, then I would have the same shading, but I would make it equal to 1. Not bad, right? I mean, our solving our equation, our inequalities are the same as solving equations, right? Yeah, did I say that right? Solving inequalities has the same steps of solving equations. Okay.
Okay, so when you color that in, it means it's greater than.
No, when I did this is the greater than. This is the greater than. It points in the greater direction.
Yeah, I'm talking about
This is the equals to. It's that piece right there. Okay, we're going to do 2 or 3 more because I haven't shown you yet what the extra piece is in an inequality. So let's do this. Okay, let's do this one. Does everybody have this one written down?
That means it's greater than, right?
Greater than or equal to.
Equal to, okay.
Mhm. Line down through the equal sign, circle the variable. Okay. So when we're focused on this side and we say we've got to get rid of the 17, it's a positive 17 because there's nothing there. And we need to get rid of the negative 3. So which one do I get rid of first?
17.
The 17 because of the best friend scenario, right? It's a plus 17. We're going to subtract 17. And we have to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to have a new equation, an inequality to work with. This is a 0 pair. And 14 plus a negative 17. Think of your money if you need to. You're doing okay in your bank account, but you wrote a check for 17.
Negative
so
3.
You're in the negative. Negative 3. And I have negative 3x. Line down through the equal sign, circle the variable. And now to get the variable by itself, I have to get rid of this negative 3, right? Okay, how is that negative 3 connected to the x?
It is.
It's by 1.
It's multiplied.
Multiply, because when it's crammed together, it's multiply. So how am I going to undo multiply? Divide. So I'm going to divide. Now be careful here. We haven't dealt a lot in negatives yet, but when you divide by exactly what you want to get rid of. So you have to divide by a negative 3. Okay? Because you want the negatives cancel and the 3's to cancel. Okay? So whatever you do to one side, you're going to do to the other side. And we're going to come up with a new equation. Now, when we work this, we know that in multiply or divide, if we have an even number of negatives, our answer is going to be positive, okay? And I think of it as this negative cancels this negative. This 3 cancels this 3, and all of it is a positive 1x. Okay? And then on this side, the negatives cancel, the 3's cancel, so I have a 1, right? Okay, now stop. Here is the only other rule you need to know in inequalities. And I'll write it up here too. If you divide or multiply by a negative, it switches the sign in the next step. We divided by a negative. So I know that this sign switches in the next step.
And that means it's less than.
Now it's less than or
It's
equal to.
what?
Yes.
Less than or equal to.
Less than or equal to. Do I need to write all that down? Okay.
Yeah.
If you multiply or divide, let's see if this is still on the screen. Whoops. If you multiply or divide by a negative, flip the sign on the next step. If you multiply or divide by a negative, this is in the inequalities. If you divide or multiply by a negative, then the very next step, you don't write this one, you flip it. If you divide or multiply by a negative. Now let's graph it. Let me see if I can get a bunch of stuff on this screen at the same time. Okay. Since I only have one variable in my answer, then I'm only going to have one line. I'm going to have a number line. And this is what my number line always looks like. And then I have to find my important number. What is the important number here? 1, because that's the answer, right? So the positive 1 is on this side. This is the positive and this is the negative. So a positive 1 is right here. It's 1. And because it's important, I'm going to circle it. And then and then I stop. I have to make 2 decisions. Do I color it in or not?
No.
You can. You can, because it is saying that it's equal to or less. No.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
You're
you
getting
can color it in and be just fine.
You are correct, Randy, but it's not. You can, if you want to. Because of the equal sign, you have to color it in, okay? Okay, so you were correct it's because of the equal sign, this thing right here. So you have to color it in. The second decision that you have to make is which way are you going to shade? Which way?
The left, the right.
It's less than.
Look at this.
Oh,
We're going to,
I
this
wrote it-
says,
I wrote it down.
this says less than. So we're going to go less than. And the reason I go ahead and color this in is because it says yes, and it just keeps on going. That means that any number in here, maybe this is -7, maybe this is -2. even 0, that x in this problem can be any of those numbers.
Then why is it on the other side of the 0? If it's less, would it be a -1?
Here?
Yeah.
No, because the two negatives canceled each other and made it a positive one. So that's why I made the positive one be the important number. Good questions. Good questions.
Equal could, so it could be that, or it could be anything on the negative side.
Yes, yes. So the value of x is not only 1, but it could be 0 or -1 or -2, or it could be -8.5 or -8 3/4. That's what we color in all of the numbers.
Because it just says that it could go there or anywhere down the line.
Yep,
Who
anywhere
knows
down the
where it
line.
stops.
Let's do one more. And then if you want more, we'll do it. If you don't, we will let you start working, because I got plenty of pages yesterday. Let's pick one off the pages. Okay, these were yesterday's. These. There's a good one. All right. Here we go. We're also going to practice our translating. Okay? Okay, this comes off of one of the worksheets you're going to have today. Okay. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to try another color. You guys tell me. Everybody got it copied? Okay, what did we say about the quotient?
Quotient would be equal, or so.
Come on, y'all.
No, it
Divide.
Divide.
yeah.
Quotient means divide. And we also found out this week that if you see some difference, product and quotient, that tells you to immediately write the parentheses also. Remember, this is one of those 4 words. So we've got parentheses and divide. That's what all of this tells you to do. The quotient. It says write a parentheses and put divide in it, because quotient is the answer to a divide problem, okay? And we said, if you see one of these words, then directly afterwards, it will tell you what to put here and what to put here. So let's look at the next part. The quotient of x and, this and kind of divides those up. So the x goes in the front, the 3 goes in the back. That's how you say the quotient of x and 3, right here. Okay? Next thing.
less than or equal to.
So what do I put here?
I would
The,
do 2. Line.
Okay, it's a line, and,
Less.
the less than,
okay, because we found out in our vocabulary, less than may mean minus if we see it somewhere, but if it has is less than, that means the sign. Okay, so this says is less than or equal to, less than or equal to 5. Now I feel like we're getting a lot of stuff up here. So can I erase some so it's not so confusing?
mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to move the problem up. The quotient of x and 3 is less than or equal to 5. Okay. So now we're going to try to solve this. Well, we haven't worked much with the division sign. So would it be okay if we write it like this? X divided by 3. Are you guys okay with that? We found out a long time ago that this divide sign and the sign in a fraction is divide. So both of these mean exactly the same thing. Are you guys okay with that? Okay. Less than or equal to 5. Now this makes it a little bit more clear for us because we're used to doing it this way. Okay. So if we're going to solve this inequality, we have to put the line down through the equal sign and circle the variable. The variable is only on one side, so we don't have to do that step. It's already there. And if I look at the side with the variable, I can tell what I have to get rid of. Okay, I have to get rid of the 3, right? How's it hooked to the x?
It's by divide.
By divide. How do you get rid of divide?
Multiply.
Multiply. So we're going to multiply this side by 3, and I'm going to put it over 1 because it's a fraction. And I'm going to multiply this side by 3. Didn't put it over 1 because I don't have a fraction. And now when I look at this side, I see a 3 that's in the numerator, 3 that's in the denominator, and both of them divide by the same number. So if I divide this by 3, I get 1, and divide this by 3, I get 1. Over here, I get 15. And so 1 times x is x. 1 times 1 is 1. We don't write the 1 on the bottom. It's not incorrect. I mean, it's not wrong, but it's better if you don't write it. And then you stop and you say, okay, did I divide or multiply by a negative? So you look at what I multiplied by. Was it a negative? No. So I don't have to worry about flipping the sign. It's going to be the same sign. You just copy the sign down. And now let's graph it. It only has one variable, so you're only going to have one line. We always put the 0 and the important number. In this case, the important number is 15. Okay, and we circle it on the line because it's important. Okay, 2 decisions. One decision is, do I color in the circle or leave it open?
Have to color it in.
Have to color it in. Why, Randy?
Because it's equal to.
Because of this line right here, it says it's equal to. So it has to be colored in. It says it's equal to 15. And then I have to decide which way to shade.
And
What does this say? What is that word?
less than.
Less than.
So it's going to be shaded left.
Yes, and Irene was showing me too. That's wonderful. Now, some people get mixed up and they say, oh, here's the 0, so I'm going to shade here. No. You shade from the important number. So we're going to shade all the way from the important number, all the way. What do y'all think?
Too much work,
What I'm going to do, I think I've decided that we're going to use today and the next 2 days to go ahead and do our graphing and our inequalities. We're going to practice a lot more. So when you get your worksheets today, you're going to be able to do some and you're going to have questions about some. Okay? Just mark the questions, either circle the numbers or put a star by it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But what I want you to do is start trying to attack these, okay? Inequalities. Everybody good?
This is actually on the math test.
Of course it is,
practice
yes.
test and stuff like that.
Yes.
So this will help me out a lot.
And I have vouchers for Rachel. I don't think I have one for you, Randy, yet. I have Vanessa, Irene, Mary. Rebecca's already had hers, and John's already done one. So I will get you your vouchers. Okay, and you can go ahead and take your tests. There are. You can do either one. I don't know for sure if all 4 of my computers work. So you guys can, pardon?
I brought my laptop.
Okay. Rachel's
That's
going to
why
do
I
hers
do.
on her laptop.
That's why I can't find it.
You'll go in the computer room? Okay, in the computer room. Okay, let me stop this recording.